DVB Digital Fast.
Hello and welcome to DVB Newsroom. I'm Nora. Joining me today is Thant Sin, an editor, producer, and presenter with Voice of America, based in Washington, D.C. She's also the newest host of Insight Myanmar Podcast. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Nora.
To start off, what does the transition from radio to podcast been like for you? You're the first journalist to host Insight Myanmar, right?
Yes, that's correct. So I have been in the broadcasting media field for about a decade now. Even before that, I started out as a reporter for the Myanmar Times bilingual newspaper, and starting from print media and then transitioned to broadcasting media at VOA. And now I am a podcast host at Insight Myanmar. So there has been a lot of transition since then. So I have been with VOA. Well, I was with VOA since 2015. And there I was the main TV anchor for the morning show and the host for the radio shows, and also editor and producer for the affiliate TV show, and also did weekend television shows. So I wore many hats. And also there at VOA, I was the beat reporter for the United Nations to Myanmar and congressional beats, where I attended congressional hearings. And from then, I went to White House and State Department frequently to cover Myanmar events. Working at Inside Myanmar is not so far-fetched from my previous job at VOA before, but it is in a different way. So podcasting, it is a new platform where the strength is Inside Myanmar, it's a long form interview. In the form of a podcast, unlike television, we are not limited by the airtime. And my strength at VOA and also my work as a journalist is engaging and personable, and I can bring that to my work as a podcast host for Inside Myanmar. As you guys may well know, the value of the podcast, seeing as you know, we're on DVB News podcast as a branch from traditional media like DVB News. I'm sure you can attest to the statement that podcasting is the future of media.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you feel you can say or do things in podcasting that you couldn't do on radio?
Yeah, the like I said, the most competitive thing we can do on television and radio is airtime. There is people's attention spans are getting shorter and shorter, and as a traditional news agency, as you put out the news, you need to think about the way people are consuming. And with that, when you're on television, especially when you are on satellite television, you are competing for this limited time slot that is allotted for you to deliver the most accurate and the most important news at the top of it. But with podcasting, it is a different way of consuming media. And I get to be engaging with the guests and have actually an in-depth analysis and conversation about the things at end. And as you know, Myanmar issues are very complicated. It's not black and white. And I feel that only if we have enough time to sit down and chat about it and put things in context, not just a blip, not just a 1-minute video, then it could really benefit the audience and give them the kind of news content that they deserve.
Yeah. Can you tell me what's the status of Voice of America's Burmese language news service?
Yeah, so I'm gonna be careful with what I say on the record regarding the current state of VOA as a whole as well, because a lot of things are going on. There's so many variables, and nothing is really set in stone yet. So you might have already know, in March 2025, President Donald Trump signed an executive order to eliminate the non-statutory functions and reduce the staffs of many federal agencies, including USAGM, which is the United States Agency for Global Media. That is the parent agency of VOA. So many of the federal employees, including VOA staffs, were put on admin leave. And as of right now, VOA Burmese service is not broadcasting right now.
So as you have mentioned, You've worked as a news presenter at VOA since 2015. How was it covering Myanmar's democratic transition, which ended with the 2021 military coup?
That is probably one of the hardest things I have done in my professional career, to cover the events following the 2021 coup. I was the face of the morning news, or I guess like the daily evening news in Myanmar. And one of my many responsibilities, beside appearing on television as a TV anchor, is also as a producer. So I would write my own stories and compile a collection of news stories of the day, and also have to edit the footages that come in. And around that time, the emotions are high, and it's hard on a national level and also on a personal level. The uncertainties. I remember I watched as the pro-democracy crowd moved from Minigo, Leran Sule, and shortly after that, the police armors with trucks, moved towards the crowd, and the violence broke. And I don't know if I've ever shown this side of me on TV, because I have to be the calm and composed version when I deliver the news. But it was really difficult to watch the footage. And also, my job behind the scene is watch the footage and sometimes have to censor the graphic content. And to be honest, I really didn't want to do it. I really wanted to quit, and I didn't want to continue my work as a journalist. And I just want to forget about it and go about my day, because, in Washington, D.C., it's a relatively peaceful place and I could forget about it. But just eventually I came to terms with myself that I value my connection with my home country, and also our audience who need independent news more than ever, because around that, starting from 2021 coup, the independent news media in the country has been shut down. So because of that value system that I have, that I want to continue my engagement and connection with Myanmar. And so that's why even now, when I'm not with VOA anymore, I want to continue my work in the same way, with the same value system that I bring to Insight Myanmar Podcast. And I want to preserve my connection with Myanmar. And I feel somewhat of a responsibility for Myanmar audience.
You once described journalism as a kind of rebellion against censorship and stereotypes. Has this perspective changed since the coup?
When I first started out, in the early 2000s, I started out as a reporter for the Myanmar Times. I was young and I was headstrong, thinking that I will use my pen as a weapon. And around that time in Myanmar, in early 2000s, there was still heavy censorship on what you can publish. And so I came into journalism thinking that I wanted to defy against the censorship. I want to use journalism as a form of activism. But, as I gained more experience working as a journalist, I realized that journalism is a profession. It is not synonymous as the work of an activist. I want to share with you one of my favorite quotes. It's called, "The news may be good, the news may be bad. We shall tell you the truth." That is a quote from the journalist Williams Harlan Hay during the first VOA broadcast during World War II in 1942. So I attest to that quote, and my profession as a journalist is to report accurate and objective news, whether I like it or not. And honestly, my feelings about the truth is irrelevant. It's my job to present the truth.
VOA Burmese reaches millions inside Myanmar. How did you measure impact, and what kind of feedback did you get from the audience?
So we have various ways, not just VOA Burmese service, but VOA as a whole, as a system of collecting their data about what the audience are thinking and whether they like certain programs more than the other. We also get insights from social media like Facebook, different platforms give you feedback, and then also from the devices that people tune in. And when I was at VOA, we always welcome and receive many messages from our audience. So we actually have this program called Letters from Burma, where we would read audience fan mails on air.
Did it change how you think about your work?
Oh, of course. I think we take feedback very seriously, and we always were trying to improve. And sometimes, audience are the most consistent part of our job. They listen to our footage and our news all the time. So with that, I think I can speak for my team at VOA that we were always trying to improve for better based on the feedback that we get.
As a journalist in the US, what kind of challenges do you face in verifying news and information coming out of Myanmar?
So when I was at VOA Burmese Service, although we are in Washington, D.C. as a headquarter, we did not work alone. We rely heavily on our stringers and correspondents in the country, and I guess post-coup is in the region. And we always double, triple check our sources. And that has always been the case. But especially after the 2021 coup, it was slightly more difficult. On top of the fact that we have to always protect our sources, and now we also had to protect our journalists from what they say. And a lot of our journalists were still living under the military rule.
So, have you ever had to hold back a story because you could not be sure? After the coup?
I wouldn't say hold back in the way of self-censorship, but sometimes people or our sources have concerns about appearing on television. In good old times, people like being on television. People like sharing their opinions. But after the coup, security and safety is our number one priority. So sometimes we have to blur the face, we have to distort the voice, and sometimes we can't share the byline of the journalist. So we have to make adjustments. And no matter what, yes, it's important to report the news, but it is the most important to protect the lives of the people.
Could you share one of the stories you reported that sticks with you to this day?
So it is one of the most memorable in my recent journalism experience is that when I went to the White House to cover an event, International Women of Courage Award, that is received by a Myanmar woman. I think that is in my greatest honor to be in a position as a young Burmese journalist to be in the White House in the presence of the First Lady and the Secretary of State and report in front of the West Wing on the White House lawn. And one of our own Burmese women is receiving the highest honor. And that really stuck with me. That really stuck with me. And I felt like it feels surreal, and I feel the greatest honor to be able to do that.
How did VOA cover the 2017 military crackdown in Rakhine State and the Rohingya exodus into Bangladesh, which was labeled as genocide by the US?
It was tricky. It was tricky to say the least. And when reporting on the Rohingya news, and especially at the beginning around 2017. So majority of the VOA Burmese audience are from inside the country. And at the time, most of them do not even want to address the Rohingya as Rohingya, but they were rather called them as Bengalis or Muslim population in Rakhine. And the military and the civilian government at the time also did not really use, or like they kind of cleverly avoid using the term Rohingya, but would rather address altogether as quote unquote the Muslim conflict, which was not wrong, but the wording and the usage of Rohingya is controversial at the time. And at VOA, I remember we had an internal meeting and we had a long discussion. And then in the end, we decided that it is important to use the word Rohingya, or whether our audience agree or not. And at the time, our audience did not always have the positive of feedbacks regarding the word Rohingya being used by VOA Burmese. So on Facebook, they would make it known. We received multiple feedbacks that are unpleasant. At some point, it was uh, getting out of hand in a way that they would use certain curse words, swear words, that we needed to use Facebook platform to specifically filter out the spellings of the Burmese curse words so that it won't be spamming under all our broadcasts and in flooding in the comments. So it was a tricky time to navigate.
Do you see a difference between how Myanmar media covered the Rohingya before 2021 and after the coup?
Well, the thing is, after the 2021 coup, there was very little independent news media coverage from within the country. And I think people have feelings on this issue has shifted post-coup, and we have become more of a solidarity front in the suffering and then the atrocity that military has done on people. So I would say there has been a shift since post coup as well.
You have experimented with different styles of journalistic storytelling. What do you think best connects with Myanmar youth?
I think Myanmar youth is hungry for more information and more connection. And I think different platforms, I totally agree that VOA Burmese or other traditional media way of doing television and radio, but the way that we consume news and information has changed. And it is important to have more engaging platform like podcasting and which we bring in the youth because youth, young people have so many different valuable opinions that it is important to hear them out. Or culturally, we sometimes tend to dismiss the younger people as less knowledgeable, but we need to hear their voice and also we need to change with the time. Podcasting, video podcasting, and engaging and inviting people of different race, ethnicity, and age group will only further bring us further into creating deeper connection among the audience as well.
Do you think they trust international media like VOA, or are they more drawn to the grassroots creators?
From my experience, when I was at VOA Burmese as well, the way they, not just the youth, but a lot of us don't have the attention span to just sit and watch TV or news for hours. So it needs to be consumed in a different way. And I can't speak for all the youth, but there is short form media surrounding us everywhere. So if you have time to listen to long form interview, like the kind of interviews that I do at Insight Myanmar Podcast, then you would actually get the entire scope of the conflict at hand and have the context to further argue about it for or against in a more intellectual way, and more well-rounded arguments could be made from that.
So looking ahead, what kind of stories do you want to explore for the Inside Myanmar podcast or for other platforms?
I want to stick to my value of the core of why I'm doing it. I always go back to the why of why I'm doing it is, whether I was at Myanmar Times or VOA or now with Inside Myanmar, I want to stay engaged with Myanmar. So I will continue to interview important players in the Myanmar scope, and not just ambassadors and congressmen, but also the ones that are actually on the ground working on the future of Myanmar.
Do you think you would ever start your own podcast?
Maybe not in the form of a podcast, no, but I really enjoy and find value in having a sit down conversation with people who are actively working on Myanmar and are experts on Myanmar. So I will continue my work as a journalist, as an interviewer, no matter which news agency or which company I'm with. And at Inside Myanmar, I feel like it is my own because I have a lot of choices in terms of I'm at liberty to interview and do work in the way that I believe that the audience deserve. And I also welcome ideas on who you think I should interview next and how I can better contribute in building the future of Myanmar as well.
Before we wrap up, is there a message you'd like to share with the people of Myanmar?
The people of Myanmar is me and I am them and we are one. And although I'm on the other side of the world and not there physically, but my heart is and will always be with Myanmar. And it is the home that I carry with me in every stage of the life. And I will continue to do so. And I will work to build the future of Myanmar as well.
So thank you for sharing your story and your time with DVB.
Thank you, Nora.